Todd Campbell here. I started with Coalition for Clean Air in 1997 with the Natural Resources Defense Council. The two organizations were going after four major grocery chains for exposing numerous disadvantaged communities to high levels of diesel exhaust known to cause cancer and reproductive harm. 2 years later, I decided that I would become the organization's policy director with Tim Carmichael at the helm. And after 7 years, I took a little bit of a break, but came back on the board maybe 5 years later and have not been able to shake my addiction of this wonderful organization ever since. It is truly an amazing place to work, not only as a staff person, but as a board member. And I'm very grateful. So what did I do while at Coalition for Clean Air? Well, a lot. This group is very active. Like I said, we went after grocery chains for diesel exhaust exposure. We went after the China shipping development at the Port of Los Angeles when we found that CEQA rules were being broken. We passed, with the leadership of Dr. Burke, the fleet rules at the South Coast Air Quality Management District in the early 2000s. We helped pass AB 32, SB 32. We're known for smog check, and actually most recently passed legislation that would apply the same principles of that rule to trucks. So lots of stuff that happens in Coalition for Clean Air. Well, I don't know if it's the best achievement, but it was very funny for me. Coalition for Clean Air used to have a fashion show, which I dearly miss. And we did a really great job teaming up with Aveda and their natural products for shampoos and conditioners and other things. And we did this fashion show down in the fashion district in Los Angeles, where we would pair up Coalition for Clean Air staff members with elected officials. And my duo was Eric Garcetti, where we did Zoolander and did a dance-off, which was a lot of fun. I clearly won. He lost, hands down. I was very smooth. And let's just say, I wish we could do that again.
Hi, I'm Felicia Marcus, and I was involved in the Coalition for Clean Air, being on its board in the 1980s through 1993. When I was on the Coalition for Clean Air board, I just was involved in helping run the organization, helping with our strategy, frequently as a media spokesperson, and in helping develop the lawsuit against US EPA to implement a federal implementation plan because of the failure of the state of California and the local air quality management district to adequately meet air quality standards with their planning. Well, there are two things that come to mind, and this may say more about my quirky brain than anything else. The first thing is I was really impressed that Cindy Harrell-Horn, nationally known model, spokesperson, activist, and Ed Begley, internationally known too, actor, were on our board and came to our meetings and worked like just one of us. Not, I'm going to grace you with my presence at a fundraiser, but rolling up their sleeves because this was such an important issue. To me, that was unusual, remarkable, and frankly, pretty darn inspiring. The other thing that maybe this is inappropriate to say, but we would do our fundraisers, and occasionally we would honor people who had supported the organization financially or in particular issues. And we had a fundraiser. I don't want to name names, but we had a fundraiser where one of our board members basically spent the whole time insulting the corporate good citizen at the time. For being a corporate citizen, which seemed like an interesting approach. And so I was tempted to do a fundraiser that would roast her, and then we would end up with all kinds of corporate donations. Sorry, just silly memory on my part. Well, the thing about the Coalition for Clean Air that was so fantastic was the whole sense of the group. We were in it to help LA and to deal with an issue that people could see it, people could feel it every day, making their brains not work by the end of the afternoon through the day. You had old people and children and people who had lung impairments affected every day. And so the thing that inspired me the most was just the entire group, not just the board members, but the staff and everyone who worked there. It was definitely a labor of love and a labor of passion. And I just thought that the whole endeavor and being a part of it was inspiring and important. And one of the most worthy causes imaginable. And, we had an impact. We knew we were having an impact at the Air Quality Management District by raising the awareness of the public at the state level and even at the federal level. So it's the little engine that could. And so everyone involved with it really inspired me at the time. And the only reason I left it is because I got appointed EPA regional administrator, and I had to. And then I had to implement that lawsuit that we won, which was really hard. But it was great to be able to put myself where my mouth was. And the Coalition for Clean Air is what gave me that opportunity.
I am Sister Maria Muhammad of I Am Green in San Diego, California. We first got involved with the Coalition for Clean Air by participating in Clean Air Day events. We kind of noticed that not a lot of people who look like us were attending these events, nor could we find any in our community. So we started to host our own. And so we've been hosting Clean Air Day events in communities of concern for probably about 2 or 3 years now. Our Clean Air Day events in southeastern San Diego have been epic. We've done EV tailgates where all of us who own electric vehicles just show up and videotape ourselves and talk and post to social media platforms on why we chose to purchase electric vehicles and what it's been like, what the experience has been like to own an electric vehicle, sometimes in communities that do not have the infrastructure to support EV owners. So like some of the challenges and the barriers that we face and how we overcome them to help our community members who need it most to adopt to becoming an EV owner and operator. So we've done things such as that. We did a sip and paint where we talked about clean air and taking the Clean Air Day pledge while we sipped a little juice and painted a landscape from our community for Clean Air Day, and because we have beautiful views here in southeastern San Diego, and we could see them much better if we had clean air. One of the best memories from working with the Coalition for Clean Air was when we did an EV test drive, and we had one of the most highly attended EV test drives in the state of California. And we had it right in the hood, right in the place that needs it the most, that has the highest asthma rates and, the ill effects of, not having clean air, right? And so the best feeling was when one of the participants who went on a test drive actually texted me from the car dealer as they were going and making the decision to purchase an electric vehicle. And so it's those kinds of memories and it's those kind of happenings that helps to fuel us to continue to push forward in our quest for clean air. I do not know anyone who works at CCA, but what I will say has inspired me is whoever said it was okay for I Am Green to get some funding for Clean Air Day. They definitely, whoever that was who made that decision, or people who made that decision, definitely inspires me, because it allows communities that need it most to get the education that we need to push forward and to advocate that certain laws, legislation, policies, that the equity is baked into those policies and those laws, and how the city plans that will help prevent from certain communities suffering more than others, or any community suffering due to a poor lack of planning or due to systemic issues that have caused us to be in certain areas that are disproportionately impacted by greenhouse gas emissions. So whoever's on that board that said that, yeah, go ahead and help I Am Green out down there in San Diego, they definitely inspired me.
Hi, my name is Tom Epstein, and I've been on the board of the Coalition for Clean Air for the past 7 years. In my years on the CCA board, I've chaired the Development Committee and the Communications Committee. I worked on environmental issues in the Clinton White House, and in that capacity, worked very closely with CCA and US EPA to protect California's smog check program from being weakened by the state legislature. We were successful, and it was a great outcome. The person who has inspired me most at the Coalition for Clean Air is Ed Begley. I met Ed on the Prop 65 campaign back in 1986, and he was a real trooper then and has always been a crusader for clean air. It's been a pleasure to work on the board with him these last 7 years.
Hi, my name is Bruce DD Mac Rae, and I'm the Vice President of U.S. Government Affairs for UPS. You know, we've been part of the Coalition for Clean Air for decades. We believe in it. We believe in clean air. Why? Doesn't everybody? Shouldn't everybody? So yes, again, been there for decades. We're continuing on because it's a vision that we believe in too. By being a member of the Coalition for Clean Air, you know, it's about educating other people, educating legislators, educating other businesses on why we need clean air, why we need sustainable energy, sustainable vehicles. You know, I believe in it. And again, like I've stated before, our company believes in it. And our job is to go out there and educate others on why they should believe in it too. What stands out in my memory? Well, I've got Ed Begley Jr. What a great man. We've been through a couple leaders, but Joe Lou, you've been outstanding for the coalition. We've had many, many great events. And I remember talking at one of the events of what we do at UPS and what we do to be more sustainable. And many people didn't know. And what it comes down to, if you want a sustainable company, use them. Don't just say you've got to be sustainable. Use them. And the world will be a better place, and we will have more people being more sustainable. Who's inspired me that's been a part of the Coalition for Clean Air? Todd Campbell, Clean Energies, Eric Neandros, Joe Lou. I tell you what, Joe believes in clean air. Joe believes in clean water. We may not always see eye to eye on exactly how to do it, but as an inspiration to me, to make me a better person, to make my company and be able to educate my company on better sustainability opportunities. Yeah, Joe, you got my vote. We believe in you. All of us believe in you here at the Coalition for Clean Air.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Jonasson, and I was employed by CCA in the Fresno office from 2010 to 2013, and I'm kind of still involved with CCA. When I worked for CCA, I worked out of the Fresno office, and so did the policy work for the San Joaquin Valley Air Basin, did a lot of transportation policy, a lot of going up and down the valley, advocating for clean air measures, talking to a lot of advocates, doing education, anything to reduce the air pollution levels in our valley. So I remember when I first started at CCA, people would talk about how CCA was responsible for the emission standards and making sure that vehicles had to get smog checked. And so that really stands out, especially as I connected to the Clean Cars campaign that we worked on. It was a large group statewide, all looking at emission standards, knowing that California really was going to lead the nation in that work. And now as we continue to talk about emission standards and continue the conversation about making sure that climate change is curbed, that really stands out because I distinctly remember the work, and it's the same fight, and we'll continue going until cars are all electric and electricity is made from renewable clean sources and the rest of it. So that every time I hear about emission standards on vehicles, I think about the Clean Cars campaign and my time with CCA. I think the people that always inspire me are the people that were willing to spend their time to show up to hearings, to attend events, to demand accountability for our poor air quality that weren't working in the field. Those were people that had to take time out of their day, out of their evening, out of spending time with their kids or what have you, to go and really be a voice for all of us that are breathing the air. And so that has always been inspiring because we do it, or did it for our work. And we had that interest and, of course, the interest of public health, but people that weren't being compensated for that time and are doing it truly for the mission are always going to be an inspiration to me and remind me to keep doing my part, whatever I can, to make things better for our society.
Hey all, my name is Denny Zane. I'm Executive Director now of Move LA. Once upon a time, I was Executive Director of the Coalition for Clean Air. Congratulations, Coalition for Clean Air. 50 years, my goodness. And I was there about, I guess, year 25. And we even had a 25th anniversary party. And accomplished, I think, a fair amount. When I was there, it was in the, right after I left the Santa Monica City Council. So I was there from like about 93 to 95, maybe, 92, 94, somewhere thereabouts. And it was a time when zero emission vehicle program was really in its infancy, and we were all campaigning to try to make sure that the Air Resources Board stayed committed to ZEVs. We worked on ensuring that LA Metro, instead of staying with diesel, would shift to natural gas buses. I have to thank Cindy Horn, who was a board member of the Coalition for Clean Air there, who pushed us to get onto that issue, and it worked out really well. I met Antonio V. Ragosa there. He became Speaker of the Assembly and later Mayor of Los Angeles, and I worked with him on issues. And I have to say the Carl Moyer program was also one of my favorite projects. The Coalition for Clean Air really can take credit for having initiated and created the Carl Moyer program, which is a program that provides funding for clean alternatives to diesel trucks. And Carl was our close advisor and dear friend. And Antonio V. Ragosa was Speaker of the Assembly, and he carried the legislation and it got it passed. And I understand today that it's been one of California's most successful clean air strategies. There was a whole range of issues to work on when I was there. This was, in the 90s, was still quite smoggy in Southern California. So we were working on legislation to implement a smog check program. I think Coalition for Clean Air was the first organization to push for use of remote sensors in smog check. We helped Richard Katz develop the legislation related to that. Coalition for Clean Air had won a federal lawsuit to force California to develop a federal implementation plan, a FIP. And this was right about the time that Bill Clinton became president and Mary Nichols became the head of air and radiation at EPA in Washington. So we worked a lot trying to figure out how a federal implementation plan might go. That led us really to have to work on the issues of diesel technologies, the most serious air quality problem then and now, and trying to get strategies to clean up trucks and off-road vehicles and clean up the ports, etc. And that ultimately led us to create the Carl Moyer program legislation, which provides and has provided since like 95, it has provided major funding for alternatives to diesel trucks, both the development and the deployment and the commercialization of those trucks. It's been a very successful program. I think Coalition for Clean Air really deserves and should take full credit for that success. There were a whole range of issues. You really, transit, clean transit, how to get clean transit. That was a major issue. I think, like I remember very well that we had this wonderful party, 25th anniversary party, on a patio at a restaurant in Santa Monica. What's the restaurant called now? Volcano on 5th Street. And a big old patio. It was great for a big old party. A lot of fun. We honored Jan Chatton Brown, and I really had a wonderful time. It was a very good evening. I remember when we were pushing LA Metro to shift to natural gas buses, and Ed Begley Jr. Was working with us on that, and we had a big press conference. We thought it was going to be a big press conference on the steps of the County Board of Supervisors, and what happened is that it was the same day that some Greenpeace folks were hanging banners from the top of skyscrapers in downtown Los Angeles, anti-ARCO banners. And so all of the press attention went to the Greenpeace guys who were climbing up the skyscrapers to hang their banners. That was kind of funny. But I think one of the things I really remember was after we had worked with Antonio Villaraigosa and got the Carl Moyer legislation approved, and it was on the governor's desk. And that winter, Carl went skiing and passed out and passed away on the slopes of Mammoth. And it was a big shock to all of us, although I can think of, he didn't have an accident. He just must have had a heart incident. But the program now has his name, and everybody who knew Carl knew that we were dealing with one of the most wonderful men. There were several people who really inspired me and became dear friends with the Coalition for Clean Air. First I want to mention is Cliff Gladstein, who had been both president of the Gilda Bay Board and then president of the Coalition for Clean Air Board, and had been on Tom Hayden's staff, Senator Hayden's staff, and wrote Big Green, which was a statewide ballot measure, or co-wrote Big Green, statewide ballot measure that we worked on to try to put environmental agenda into law in California. It failed, but I think it had a very profound effect upon the debate in California and its leadership role. Cindy Horn, everything that we did that had to do with dumping diesel, whether it was going to LA Metro and convincing them to purchase natural gas buses, or the Carl Moyer program, really was inspired by Cindy's advocacy and pushing us to make dumping diesel a priority. Mark Abramowitz, whose name was on several Coalition for Clean Air lawsuits, including the federal lawsuit that created the need for the federal implementation plan, the FIP. And that really triggered a lot of the best coalition building and dialogue with industry about the creation of the Carl Moyer program, ultimately. And I certainly want to mention Tom Soto, and Abby Arnold, who both of whom recruited me to take on the role at the Coalition for Clean Air, and both of whom had been board members and presidents of the coalition, and two people that I still see around the community and around that I have this regard for and very, very, very strong feelings and friendship and admiration for.
Hi, my name is Wendy James. I first got involved with the Coalition for Clean Air when I was managing Southern California Edison's electric transportation program in the mid-90s. The Coalition for Clean Air was a lead organization when the US EPA came in to require a federal implementation plan for the South Coast region. And I got to see what a coalition really meant to trying to get good public policy done, and it was impressive. I joined the board. I was on the board for a long time. I became chair of the board, and I remained involved with the coalition for a good 25 years. It's an impressive and badass organization. During my tenure on the board, probably the first thing I remember was the work on stopping diesels, particularly diesels with school buses. It was a really important effort. The school bus work was something that nobody else was doing, and the Coalition for Clean Air made its mark. Another thing was the work for electric vehicles. from the first time the Air Board imposed its electric vehicle rule in the beginning of the 90s, it was under assault by the auto industry and the oil industry. Every 2 years there was a review, and the Coalition for Clean Air brought all of its technical might to defending that regulation, and that was really critical. And the work at the port also began while I was there, another really, really important effort. And another thing that I recall that I'm very proud of is diversifying the board. We worked to bring a broad and diverse board for the coalition long before other organizations were even thinking about doing that kind of thing. So I have a lot of fond memories of the important work that the coalition did, and it's something I'm really proud of. One of my strongest memories, it's hard to say whether it's my greatest memory, is a board meeting that we had as part of a strategic planning process where we were working to try to relieve some of the burden on staff and try to help the organization focus on fewer projects. I think we counted up something like 48 different programs that the staff was working on, and we were trying to narrow it down to maybe 7 or 8, something like that, with 3 major projects. And to witness the passion that staff had for every one of those 48 different projects and how difficult it was to try to carve off some of those was just impressive. The staff cared so much about every one of those, and to try to do something that I think the board felt was going to be relatively easy and cut down the amount of work that staff was doing on all those different things. And there was nothing easy about it. Every one of those really mattered to the staff, and it was one of the biggest challenges we had as a board, getting those projects narrowed down. My greatest inspirations at the coalition were always the staff, particularly the leaders of the organization. When I first got involved, Denny Zane was executive director, and he's a remarkable human being. Denny had such devotion and passion, and he understood the meaning of coalition. He was able to bring so many different voices to the table. It was something to behold. And after Denny, Linda Wade. Oh my God, Linda Wade. Books could be written about Linda Wade and what she brought to the table. And then Tim Carmichael. And Tim brought the organization to a whole nother level. So those were my early leaders when I was involved with the coalition, and they simply inspired me greatly. So the coalition was fortunate to have those kind of building blocks, and they truly inspired me.
I first became engaged with the Coalition for Clean Air in the middle 1980s as a journalist. They were a go-to source for clean air information that was nonpartisan, practical, and authoritative. Collaborated with leaders there for about 20 years in a capacity as an environmental writer, and then subsequently joined the Coalition for Clean Air Governing Board 2007 to 2017. In the 10 years that I served on the governing board for the Coalition for Clean Air, it was a very important period, a very exciting period. It was a time where we could see very significant gains in air quality across the Los Angeles metropolitan region. That had been a long, hard fight. It was great to see the fruits of that labor by so many people. It was a time of growth for the organization as well. We added to the governing board. We added to staff. I helped the executive officer personally write 2 or 3 strategic plans to guide growth for the organization, and we see the fruits of that today. It was working with lawmakers and working with very dedicated, smart, committed people, absolutely dedicated to making quality of life and living and breathing so much easier for millions of people, and I was proud to be a part of that. The funniest memory I have at the Coalition for Clean Air was the talent show that we did. You know, we have these fundraisers and these meetings, and they can be all so stuffy and also predictable, right? And we were talking about this at a governing board meeting. We thought, what if we did something really different for one of our events, our toast event or conference or something, and we started kicking around ideas and came up with the idea of doing a talent show. We had a lot of creative people on staff, and by chance there were some fairly creative singers and musical people, etc., in some of the agencies we were working with. So we kicked this out there as an idea, and immediately it got a lot of interest, and we created sort of our own entertainment costume talent show at a meeting. I believe it was in Sacramento, and it was completely unique and really fun and really popular, and showed that there's some very talented and fun people apart from all the seriousness of government policy and clean air, environmental politics, etc. So that was a really fun memory. And I think maybe one of the things I'm most proud of was how the coalition really worked very, very hard to reckon with goods movement and emissions from the ports complex in the San Pedro Bay, a major source of air pollution for the region and a very difficult nut to crack. And the organization was just absolutely dedicated to that in advocating for policy, for the community, for sound science, and for monitors so that people could actually know what they were being exposed to. Those were all good times, all good memories. One of the people who inspired me the most at the Coalition for Clean Air is a person who I probably had the least dealings with at the Coalition for Clean Air, and that would be Ralph Perry. I joined the governing board and was sworn in at my first meeting that happened to be the meeting at which Ralph Perry was exiting the governing board after 30-some years of work leading the organization. And his reputation for dedication, for commitment, for leadership, for the good of the public was impeccable. There were so many times at the coalition where I would cross his tracks or his footprints, initiatives that he led or people who knew him. His reputation was like a great mountain. It was a very high bar, I thought, to be a board member. And I always thought to myself, if I could conclude my service on this board having achieved a fraction of what he achieved, I would consider that fairly successful. This is all volunteer work, and this is an individual in Ralph Perry who helped build this organization, lead it through its growth years, through the toughest fights in clean air, the really bad old days, so to speak, and did it with aplomb and did it with a lot of grace and unswerving dedication to the public good. And I think I think he sort of embodies what the coalition is all about. And even though I didn't really work with him very much, by reputation, I admired him so much.
The Coalition for Clean Air has had a really important place in my heart for the last 25 years. I was on the board for 10 years, from roughly 2000 to 2010. And even before that, and since that time, I've worked both directly with staff and with other board members on a number of environmental policies throughout the state, most notably the Zero Emission Vehicle Rule and the Global Warming Solutions Act. So CCA is a big part of my life and has been for 25 years. I was on the board of the Coalition for Clean Air for 10 years, and I did what any board member does for a nonprofit organization. I helped provide strategic oversight. We did financial oversight, fiscal oversight, helped recruit new board members, make some important staffing decisions on occasion. And of course, I raised money for CCA. There were so many great memories working on the board with so many great people and great staff. But, I think the thing that really stands out for me about that time, it was the early 2000s. And I think we were all going through, if you will, an awakening at the time. California's environmental policy, we were beginning to put together the link between air quality, air pollution, and the public health effects of that with climate change. And together, how air pollution and climate change affect people of disadvantaged communities. And so even though it was 25 years ago, 25 years ago, it was a time when there was a whole lot going on in that area. And CCA was really at the forefront. So I think it's not any one particular memory, but it's just my sense that that was a key time. And there was a lot of important progress being made. And we were all learning a lot at the time, too. I know I personally learned a lot. I learned a lot professionally. And I think I became a lot more sensitive and aware of these links and these important links that now we know are just very much a part of what's happening with policy. But at the time, it was very new. No one person inspired me at CCA. I have to say everybody did. All the staff, all the great people I worked with on the board. I learned so much from everybody, and I had a great time. I had a lot of fun, too. So I think rather than trying to name any one person, I just want to put a shout out to everybody because it was a great team. And working together as a team, that's how we get things done.
Hi, my name is Peter Weiner, and I was involved with CCA on the board from 1997 until 2017, and still count myself as a big fan of CCA. When I was on the board of CCA, we had so many interesting projects, all of which were intended to clean up the air in California, and especially in Southern California. We worked on making sure that dry cleaners transitioned to wet cleaning instead of using perchloroethylene, an incredibly important step for California, especially now, 25 years later, when we know that so many dry cleaners cause carcinogens to be present in disadvantaged communities. We also worked on the ports. We worked on CEQA lawsuits, and we worked on expanding CCA into the Valley and into the Bay Area. One of the things I remember most about the Coalition for Clean Air was our ability to get traction in Sacramento and to make a lasting difference in our advocacy before the Air Resources Board and the legislature. I will not soon forget how important CCA was in the minds of legislators and officials at the Air Resources Board. Whatever we said was really important.
I was a board member at the Coalition for Clean Air starting in 1990, I believe. Yes, it was 1992, I believe, when we got the MTA to dump diesel, and it was a big deal. They were going to purchase a lot more diesel buses, and I knew the mayor at the time, Mayor Reardon, fairly well. He had appointed me to the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy Board and to, another board, the Environmental Affairs Commission. That was it. And so I used what little influence I had to lobby the mayor, and we were able to, with the help of, I think, Antonio Villaraigosa as well, to make that happen and to dump diesel buses in 1992. Felicia Marcus was on the board of the Coalition for Clean Air at that time. This is in the early and mid 90s, and she was doing all these wonderful things in so many different ways that I wanted to be just like Felicia, and she greatly influenced me then and does to this day.
My time with the Coalition for Clean Air dates back to the early or maybe mid 90s. I served on the board of directors for 15 or so years. Serving on the board of a coalition was a particularly significant engagement for me because as a corporate executive, I had served on a number of boards for community organizations. but never one that advocates on matters that directly related to my business. So it was actually an act of trust and risk-taking, actually, on my part, and also on the part of the coalition to have me serve on their board. And I just remember always focusing on this notion of seeking common grounds, looking for ways to build relationship and trust with seemingly unnatural alliances, and working together towards a shared goal. We had some great times working together on initiatives to bring healthful air to the people of California. And I think probably the most fun and successful one that I could recall was the Dump Diesel campaign. The campaign that focused on bringing clean transportation to Southern California. But honestly, as I recall, everything we did seemed to be fun because of the cohesiveness of the board and staff. I think what inspired me the most while serving on the board were my fellow board members. Their intelligence, their open-mindedness, their dedication, their passion. Each bringing his and her best minds to the table, and we were all devoted to the same mission. Now, we didn't always agree, but we were always mutually respectful and united around the final decision. And we just somehow enjoyed working with each other. I do need to point out one person for whom I am most grateful, and that is Cliff Gladstein. Cliff was instrumental in convincing me to join the board to begin with. And he was the one who mentored me about issues. He encouraged me when I would get frustrated about the lack of progress. And even though I don't see Cliff or the other fellow board members regularly anymore, I will always consider them my friends for life. And in closing, I want to join all of you in celebrating the golden anniversary of the Coalition for Clean Air. May it continue to thrive and do great work for at least another 50 years under the very capable leadership of Dr. Joe Liu and the other staff, and also the people to come after him and after us. So, congratulations.
During my time at CCA, I worked mostly in the development department, working on the big events. So one of my biggest responsibilities was actually planning this event right here, the California Air Quality Awards, which I'm realizing now is kind of hard to say. One of my fondest memories at CCA was this event, the California Air Quality Awards. So for many of the years that I was at CCA, I managed this event, and it was so much work. It was a lot of work. So hats off to you, Karen. I know that you are working hard right now. But aside from how much work it was, what's memorable is seeing all the staff members come together to work on this common goal. And then on the day of the event, to be able to see all the different stakeholders in the air quality world coming together to celebrate, and knowing that, all of us in this room, we're all working towards cleaner air, healthier air. So I guess that's one of my fondest memories from being at CCA. I want to say that I was inspired by all of my colleagues at CCA. Everybody was really passionate about what they did, and everybody was a really good worker. I have very fond memories of my time at CCA, but I also feel like if I say everyone, that's kind of a cop-out answer. So I will say that, Dr. Liu and I worked together for a long time. So even before CCA, we worked together at the California Environmental Rights Alliance. And something that I found inspirational about you, Joe, is that you're able to seamlessly navigate between the different worlds of all the stakeholders involved with air quality. Meaning, I've seen you be equally comfortable at environmental justice meetings as you are talking with maybe business stakeholders or sitting in a regulatory meeting. Just being able to kind of navigate so gracefully, I guess, between all three worlds, and then being able to bring all these people to the table together is inspirational.
My name is Mark Abramowitz, and I was involved with the Coalition for Clean Air from about 1981 to 1989. Well, I started off as a volunteer. I think my first time I helped at a rummage sale that the coalition was having, and I also licked envelopes and ran errands. For a couple of summers, I worked in fighting, did a number of projects. One was fighting the Dingle-Lucan Dirty Air Bill, generated postcards for the smog check program, and also helped deliver hundreds of thousands of flyers for Share a Ride Day, and sought donations from small businesses in South Bay for a raffle for Share a Ride Day. I also ran the organization for a while. So I've done pretty much everything for the coalition. Oh, and I also testified on behalf of the coalition at the SCAQMD. I had just so many wonderful memories at the coalition. While Sabrina was there running the place, through the time when Barbara Sullivan was executive director, and then afterwards, both in doing our work as the Coalition for Clean Air, and after work, in just kind of having fun. But one of my favorite stories was, Sabrina could do a million things seemingly all at the same time, and was just always on the go, and did all those things just so well. And I remember thinking one time, I'm going to try and keep up with Sabrina. Well, within 3 days, I was sick and I was out for a week, and I never again decided to embark on such a fool's errand. Well, Sabrina Schiller. I mean, Sabrina is the reason why the coalition had an office, the reason why the coalition made such a name for itself. Sabrina really turned things around in terms of air quality in Los Angeles. And she was a great mentor to me. And and I really enjoyed knowing her and spending time with her family, and Sabrina is just a real special person, and just really is just a great hero of air quality, and a great hero of mine.
What do we have to show for our first 50 years? The short answer is better agencies, better rules, cleaner air, fewer deaths. Coalition had a hand in making all of those happen.
Ronald Loveridge, member of the CCA board, 2013, but as a member of the council and as mayor for some 33 years in the city of Riverside, admired the work and objectives of Coalition for Clean Air, of taking the quest of clean air throughout Southern California and making a statement of its importance. Well, I've been a board member since I left being mayor of Riverside in 2013, and have valued the board, and valued the kind of positions and the kind of work that's been undertaken. But I think more than that, it's really a kind of lifetime that since I first came to Riverside in '65 and found that it's the horrific air that we breathed, felt, saw, and so it's been a long history of involvement to try to change the quality of air, particularly in the inland region of Southern California. The event that stands out more than any other is the decision by the Air Resources Board to move their Southern California mobile testing station from El Monte to Riverside. Important to have a new facility for the and a news facility particularly to deal with the changes in the 21st century. But more than that, it was a recognition of Riverside City and University of California Riverside's long involvement in air quality matters, and it was an honor to be part of the group that advocated and urged the car board to choose Riverside. Must thank Mary Nichols for the opportunity for this decision. It was her leadership that raised the question of looking for a better facility. As I understand, it's now going to be the Southern California headquarters of the Air Resources Board. So anyway, that's in terms of a single specific event. I think that's my proudest moment, was the decision to come move the headquarters, mobile station, to Riverside. What I found compelling about CCA is really to have a group of people dedicate effort and time to this whole quest for clean air. My general premise in politics was that if you get good people to the table and they stay there, good things happen. And it's my experience with CCA, by having good people at the table, staying the course, working together, collaborating on initiatives, identifying problems that need to be addressed, that good things happen. So it's not so much someone, but it's really the intensity and the intelligence and the engagement and the passion of the members as they assemble for board meetings and for the work of CCA. So inspired by others.
My name is Ralph Perry, and I have been involved with the coalition since 1970, when we got lawyers from Latham and Watkins to incorporate the coalition as a nonprofit corporation in California. And I have been the president of the coalition for most of the early 15 or 20 years of the corporation's life, and was a director for 35 years or more. One of the funniest events that I was involved in was we celebrated bad legislation in Sacramento and presented a cake to Supervisor Hahn, which enumerated each one of the legislators who had a terrible record in air pollution, and the cake had a dark gray frosting to it. We monitored the legislation of the state of California and recorded who were good votes for clean air and who were not. We did the same thing with the city council, and we also had a large part in convincing the powers that be that smog didn't stop on the Los Angeles border, and that we needed a regional and not a Los Angeles or a South Coast air quality management district. I would like to give you a very funny memory that I have in the early years of the coalition. There was a gentleman who was a used car salesman in Los Angeles. He was very famous and well known. His name was Cal Worthington. And when he showed up for advertisements for his automobiles and whatnot, he was on horseback, or he was riding pigs or hippopotamuses or whatever. And one of the things that we got him to do was to make a few advertisements for the coalition and its work, and asking people for money. And Cal Worthington became a symbol for the coalition, and helped us very definitely raise money.
My name is Diana Ingram, and I was involved with CCA from 2006 to 2010. I was a member of the CCA Board of Directors and had the privilege of serving as the Strategic Planning Committee Chair. Some of the best memories I have from my years with CCA are joining with CCA staff members for legislative visits in Sacramento. I always left those meetings feeling so inspired, so energized, and really proud of the CCA team. The expertise, the commitment, and the dedication of all CCA team members just re-energized me and made me realize how important the work of CCA is. It would be hard to call out any one person at CCA that inspired me. Really, I have to say that the entire CCA team and the board of directors were very inspirational to me.
Hello, Sherry Jackman here. I've been involved with CCA from 2018 to present. I'm a board member, executive committee member, and presently the co-chair of the development committee. My best memories have been board meetings and witnessing firsthand how much the board cares about clean air, public health, and fighting against climate change. It has been incredible to witness the feats of a small and nimble nonprofit in fighting to resolve a global crisis. Everyone associated with the organization inspires me. I was particularly inspired when retired Congressman Henry Waxman spoke about his fervent efforts to improve the Clean Air Act. By listening to Mary Nichols speak about her years of dedication to air quality, and by Congressman Ted Lieu's watchdog role in air quality matters.
My name's Tim Carmichael. I was a volunteer for the Coalition for Clean Air in the early 1990s, and I was on staff there from 1995 till 2009. When I was a volunteer, I was part of the Speakers Bureau, and we would go to local schools and talk about different strategies to reduce air pollution and what kids and their families could do. Then I joined as a zero-emission advocate in the mid-90s. I think it was 1995. And I was policy director, and then I was executive director for a number of years. And helped grow the organization from Los Angeles to statewide, opening offices with a lot of people's help in Fresno and in Sacramento. I know you only wanted one memory, but I'm going to give you two. When I was a volunteer, I was part of the group that helped convince the LA County MTA to move away from diesel buses. And there were many people involved. Denny Zane was leading that charge, and Antonio Villaraigosa was a great help in that effort. And that was a great memory. And then in the early 2000s, we were very fortunate to be at the right place at the right time and support Fran Pavley in introducing and passing the first climate legislation in California. Had to do with reducing greenhouse gas emissions from vehicles, but it was the first of its kind, and it's obviously had a lasting ripple benefit. I will say that I'm inspired regularly by how many former Coalition for Clean Air staff are still very active on important efforts, moving a clean energy agenda, moving, an important environmental effort, whether it's at the local level, City of LA, or in the state legislature as critical staff, or working in the private sector. Really tremendous impacts from people that have worked for the Coalition for Clean Air at some point in the last few decades. And then, of course, the board So many board members that literally volunteer, not just years, but in some cases decades of their spare time to support the effort for clean air and to support the growth of an organization to be more impactful. And I think of that often, and it's inspiring to this day.